השירה לאדוני בחיי, הזמרה לאלוהי בעודי. 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 השירה לאדוני בחיי, הזמרה לאלוהי בעודי.
שהוא נוטר שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו. ונאמר והיה הוויה למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה השם אחד ושמו אחד, אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד, אין עוד.
אדירים ברוך ומהולל אדוני, הללו גדול גדולים דחול ומהולל אדוני.
הללויה הללויה הללו את שם אדוני, הללויה הללויה הללו את שם אדוני.
הללו הדור הדורים ותיק ומהולל אדוני, הללו זכאי זכאים חנון ומהולל אדוני.
הללויה הללויה הללו את שם אדוני, הללויה הללויה הללו את שם אדוני.
הללו טהור טהורים יחיד ומהולל אדוני, הללו כביר כבירים לעד ומהולל אדוני.
הללויה הללויה הללו את שם אדוני, הללויה הללויה הללו את שם אדוני.
מלך מלכים נורא ומהול על אדוני הללו סומך סומכים עוזר ומהול על אדוני
הללויה, הללויה, הללו את שם אדוני.
הללויה הללויה
הללו את שם אדוני.
הללו פודי פדויים צדיק ומהול על אדוני
Hallelujah, 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 et Shem Havaya. Baruchim habaot, baruchot habaim. Welcome all who come in the name of the One. Welcome to this ordination ceremony of these remarkable teachers and leaders, these soul artists and healers. I am Rabbi Shir Yaakov Fait, and I have the honor to be one of your masters of ceremony, your MC, or you might say, Meseder Chidushim, orderer of innovations, as we witness and participate in new creation, the birth of new cantors and rabbis and this rabbinic pastor. I stood with you guys where you stand today just 1 year ago as an ordainee of the ALEPH Ordination program. I deeply resonate with how you might be feeling, and I am grateful for your invitation to invite you here. Breathe. Breathe. I say we are witnesses and participants, edim, edot, because we, each and every one of us, is an aid, a witness. And together we form an edah, a community, a participatory community of witness. Our attention is our gift as we gather around this sacred Zoom fire, stretching our minds across time zones, our hearts reaching in from many different places on the planet, each one of us embracing you from a unique angle of refracted light. Or perhaps better yet is the metaphor of the table, each of us with our chair pulled up close, our attention cleaving to the power of this moment for you ordainees who are our family, our friends, our guides, our teachers. We are all around a giant Passover Seder, leaning in to hear whatever holy story is about to be told, whatever Seder is about to unfold. So why is this smicha different from all other smichas? Because of the pandemic, there can be no laying of hands. Smicha is usually physically conferred. Spelled slightly differently, in modern Hebrew, a smicha is a blanket. At a smicha ceremony in any other year, your teachers would be blanketing you with their hands at your backs, reminding you of the wings of your heart, encouraging you to fly on. Most of these ordainees will not have a physical presence, no physical hands today to feel into. We must access the deep real of the imaginal. And even if our current technology, the latency inherent in live streaming does not allow us to make literal harmony, our gratitude for the ways we can connect, and our shared kavanah, our intention, makes the harmony of this moment palpable and powerful. Why else is this smicha different from all other smichas? We do this while grieving. We grieve not only for the large-scale losses brought on by the pandemic and the startling violence at the heart of the United States seat of government, but we are grieving for 3 current or recent AOP students who have died in the past several months, including Rav Sarah Tauber, a member of this class, who would have been receiving her smicha with us today. Why else is this smicha different from all other smichas? This class represents a shift. Most of these students did not know or study directly with Reb Zalman. Many joined the AOP after Reb Zalman died in 2014. So this is a tipping point for our school wherein these leaders now carry the lineage of Jewish renewal in their own ways without his personal guidance. But every Passover Seder begins with constriction and ends in joy. This class has decided to lean into joy and the role of simcha in their work, even in a time as difficult and uncertain as this one, and in the wake of these profound losses. In their own words, the Musmachim Ot choose to stand up in an uncertain and changing world and bring our gifts with joy. Joy, as they understand it, is a kind of kedusha, a flow of holiness that holds complexity. And as writer and activist Anne Lamott encourages us, laughter is carbonated holiness. May the effervescence of this day reach us wherever we may be. This is a class whose personal lineages are global. There are Musmachim Ot representing the legacy of Iraqi and Yemenite Jewry, as well as various strands of Ashkenazi ancestry. They represent a diverse set of potential ministries in response to our new era. Some will hold in-person pulpits, others will host online ones. Some will join existing communities to share communal pulpits, others will forge new ones. Some will teach, others will create events, some will choose to be present with those in need through chaplaincy work. They will write and publish and make music. Not only is this day a little like a Passover Seder with this pastor and these cantors and rabbis becoming a sort of Miriam or Moses to lead our communities towards a promised land of liberation, this ordination is a bit like a wedding. After the laying of hand and transmission is complete, a member of this class, Charna, will break a glass as we do at weddings. We do this to symbolize a breaking with who we have been, a reboot, a coming out of the liminal space of school and study, emerging into the divine presence with new, powerful missions. But first, we will hear words of Torah, both spoken and sung from our graduates. We begin with Erev Rav Magid Charna Rosenholtz.
We're just going to adjust lights for a second, but I will begin. Lo, we stand in a historic moment, feeling the birth pangs of something new. We face this by sharing our belief that even in times of suffering, it is incumbent upon us to find joy. Reb Nachman of Bratslav reminds us that joy is not merely incidental to our spiritual quest, it is vital. Nothing is as liberating as joy. Yet this can be difficult, especially when so many people are in pain. The Piasetzner Rebbe, chief rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, reminds us that God is to be found in the inner chambers weeping, so that one who pushes in and comes close to God by means of studying Torah weeps together with God. Yes, the Shekhinah, the innermost presence of God, is weeping. She is weeping for the division between people, for the pandemic that is both killing and isolating us, for the cry of the earth who is trembling because of our lack of stewardship. My heart is broken, yet I know that this too is part of the unfolding birth. We must heal. Yet first, let us grieve. Let us find our tears. Let us uncover what is the root cause of this suffering. James Baldwin reminds us that only those things that we examine and face can be changed. Let us take a fierce moral inventory and then self-correct towards decency and love. Let us discover our own path towards healing. Let us weep with Shekhinah and use our tears to cleanse, to feel, and to open to each other. Reb Zalman, Zichron Lebracha, often spoke of a major societal paradigm shift, and he offered spiritual tools to help us strengthen and resolve and develop resilience. His fierce desire to restore pre-Holocaust Judaism and then find its renewal inspires us all. He knew that it would not be easy and that there will always be resistance in leaving our comfort zone. And he knew that we can count on the wisdom of Hebrew tradition to guide us. We can count on our sacred texts, our prayer structures, and our traditions to create strong foundations upon which to face our challenges. And we can remember to dance and laugh and bless each other. This is the medicine of our times, the magic ingredients of love and blessing. Today, as a rabbi, almost, I commit to embracing racial and social justice, women's perspectives, and shifts in gender roles and dynamics with love and compassion. Even as it is difficult, we have to rest in the surety that until all people have the opportunity to shine, no one is truly free. To build resilience in today's global society, we need to remember our intersection with all peoples and find the spaces that celebrate our commonality. By cultivating tolerance and understanding, critical thinking and imagination, we can begin to repair the brokenness and rebuild from the heart in service to the highest good and from our place of being created in God's image, true co-creators of our best vision for the world.
Thank you, Charna. A funny thing happened on my way to this ordination. Along the way, I have developed an appreciation for the power of humor when it is used constructively. I like this poem. Taking fun as simply fun and earnestness in earnest shows how thoroughly thou none of the two discernest. So, okay, how about this? A priest, a minister, and a rabbi walk into a bar mitzvah, a bar mitzvah. The priest, a kohen, priestily intones, Yevarechecha ya, please grant divine blessing and protection, Ya'er ya, grant divine inspiration and grace, Yisaya, yes, fulfilling connection to the holy essence. Then the Nistar, a student of Nistar, mystical esoteric practice, teaches, there are 10 Sefirot, ranging from Keter, God's transcendence, to Malchut, God's immanence in the world. Here's a little Keter Malchut meditation for all of us, all of you human sparks of holiness. If you'll follow along with me. Imagine yourself floating quietly, peacefully in outer space, looking down at Earth and out at the stars. Take a few breaths with that imagery. Good. Now, feel yourself embodied in your body. Expand your bubble of awareness beyond your body to hold your loved ones, other people. Expand more and make your awareness immanent in all creation. Take a few breaths like that. Good. Now take a few breaths alternating, Ratso Vashov, as they say. In, you're floating among the stars. Out, your awareness filling up all creation. Suddenly the rabbi chimes in. Yes, you're both right. And remember, as it says in Psalms, aim away from evil, act well. Sur meira, sur meira, sur meira ba'aseh tov. Thank you. God bless all of us to inspire and be inspired, to celebrate and to elevate.
Samru l'Adonai v'chinu בכל זמרה, זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור בכל זמרה. Sing praise to Yah with the lute and melodious song. One voice, alone, the sound of existence. The production of the sound of one voice requires nefesh and ruach, breath and soul. One voice expresses the desire of the heart. In song, my heart yearns for you, Yah. Shiru havaya kol ha'olamim. In virtual minyanim, my one voice calls out to the kahal, sing with me, a song to the ever-loving one. Alone in the silence, I strain to hear the harmonies in the squares on the monitor. As I search your eyes, I see your hearts. A chorus of praise like a wedding vow fulfilled. As the governmental mayhem and the global pandemic rages on, and our forced isolation keeps us from blending our voices harmoniously, we must reach deep in our hearts to find the kavanah from many voices, blended and united in the one. Zamru Adonai v'chino b'chol zimra, Zamru Adonai b'chino b'chino b'chol zimra, Zamru Adonai b'chino b'chino b'chol zimra. We transition to our next piece. We dedicate this unlikely piece to Harav Sarah Zichrona Livracha. She found it rather funny that there were so many clarinetists in our class, and we joked a bit about it, about playing for the ceremony. And then we lost our dear colleague. So as a fitting tribute to Sarah's humor and insight, I took Rav Karl Wolf's nigun and scored it for 5 clarinets. The piece demonstrates our pain of losing Rabbi Sarah as it breaks off into tension and silence, framing the Shema. When we pray the Shema, our central prayer of connection, we express our oneness with God and our people's unity in the one. These are the last words we pray before the forgetfulness of sleep, and they are the first words we utter as we wake to the gift of another day. Tradition teaches us that these are also the last words we speak as we encounter our final breath. In this musical arrangement, all 9 of us utter these words in unity with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One of blessing, and with our dear colleague, friend, and fellow Musmach, Harav Sarah.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Harav Sarah, Zichrona Livracha.
The Torah is the heart of the Jewish community. Rabbi Shulamit Sapir said in a response to something I said in class, but in the end, the life of a human being is the most sacred of all. In fact, we might say that the life of a human being is itself Torah. In the extraordinary years I have spent both as a rabbinic pastor student in the ALEPH Ordination program and as a chaplain at Jewish Community Services and Jackson Memorial Hospital, I have learned deep Torah from the lives of my teachers, colleagues, and those I serve. In my chaplaincy work, for the first time in 30 years, I've experienced overwhelming loss. In the words of the prophet Jerry Garcia, this has been a long, strange trip. Each person who died from cancer, COVID, or dementia taught me their Torah. Each fellow student and teacher also taught me their Torah. Reb Sarah taught me to listen to what people are not saying and how we can open the heart, the tent of Judaism for all Jews. From Benjamin, I learned that true love can be found around us and to find joy in curiosity. From Reb Mem, that the inquiring mind's rationalism and also the wonders of a garden are both from God. Joe was a Holocaust survivor who survived the camps. His Torah was fight for what you believe in and for those who can't fight for themselves. My beloved friend Joan taught me that community is family, and when things are not going well, to smile and dance. She taught me kindness and love are more powerful than hate. Joan could not be a member of the clergy because when she was born, so my smicha is for her as well as for me. My Torah that I share with you tonight is that in the joy and the sadness of life, we can connect to God to give us the courage we need, especially in these times. God is in the love and God is in the light, in the quiet of their absences, in the duality of profound sadness and joy, in light and love, in sorrow and in joy, I find the holiness of God.
I stand here today with awe and respect for all my teachers, mentors, friends, community members, and family, humbled to be a part of this cohort of such brilliant individuals, each with their own merit. Indeed, I am, stepping forward to our place in the long and rich chain of expression of Torah and Avodat Hashem. It is in this Torah that we read yesterday in Parashat Shmot about the interaction between God and Moshe in the well-known scene of the burning bush. In the spirit of ecumenism, I'll call it Moshe's come to the bush moment. Simply put, God is calling Moshe to serve, to do what he is called for. Moshe explains why he cannot do the work. God says, yes, you can. Moshe insists. God replies, you will. Trying to understand Moshe's reluctance, I recall my own feeling moment before I stood under my wedding chuppah, terrified before such a commitment was made. And few years later, as I was holding my newborn son, wondering with fear, how in the world am I qualified with no prior experience to care for and sustain the life that I now held? I wonder if Moshe too felt such inadequacy. Moshe said that he could not talk. Perhaps it was not his inability to talk, but rather his inability to communicate. For Moshe, it was not the mere dibur, the words that are said, but all that is reflected with the transfer of diburot, the understanding of and connectivity with the divine. He must have felt incapable of expressing the essence of the God and the mission that perhaps he himself doubted. What Moshe needed to learn, according to the teaching of Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, is that this was not about him, but about the job that needed to be done. Therefore, it is not about us, but about the job, the avodat Hashem that needs to be done. For in a place that is dark, we need to bring light. In times of pain, we need to bring healing. In times of sadness, we need to bring joy. In times of strife, we need to restore the harmony. God saw it fitting for us to be here today, each one in our own path, answering the call of duty, from Moshe to the Baal Shem Tov, to Rabbi Zalman, to my grandfathers, Mori Yechia Said and Mori Said Suleiman Halevi. I pray that with the grace of God, we will fulfill the verse of Tehillim, Ivdu et Hashem besimcha, that we will know how to do the work of God with ultimate joy.
Are there some words, a phrase, or a sentence that every time you see or hear them, you smile? This happens to me with the Hebrew phrase, Nagila v'nismecha, every time. The word Nagila at its root means something like jumping with joy. It usually is translated as rejoice. Nismecha is similar, implying a smiling countenance or embodying happiness. In our liturgy, we encounter the phrase Nagila v'nismecha in the morning blessing, in which we praise the Holy One for loving us and giving us Torah, rules for living a good life. We ask that our eyes be enlightened by Torah, that we cleave to the commandments, that our hearts be unified to love God's very essence. Then comes Nagila v'nismecha. We will rejoice and be glad. I smile every time. Perhaps you will too, because joy is more than just a good idea. The sages teach us that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, who gives the prophets the power of prophecy and David the inspiration to compose the Psalms, is made manifest through joy. The Baal Shem Tov says, in the eyes of the Hasidim, joy is considered a biblical mitzvah. And there is a teaching that the obstinacy for which we have been known since Moses first mentioned it can help us through even the most difficult of times to find our way back to joy. Nagila v'nismecha. Could I be happy just reading those words in my mind's ear or out loud? Perhaps, but I am a cantor. I know that I can really rejoice and be happy singing Nagila v'nismecha, singing in the traditional modes of prayer, or a well-loved, comfortable melody, or maybe a new tune. I am a cantor. When I sing out Nagila v'nismecha in the synagogue or from my Zoom square, it is not really about me, at least not much. It is about the community, those in the room and those who are not in the room. Merely reciting, rejoice and be happy, is not enough for me to really feel the rejoicing and gladness. I must sing it out, embodying joy and happiness, knowing that can be infectious. My melody will be the carrier wave of joy. So we sing old songs, new songs, really old songs, and feel the blessings flow.
Friends, this past Shabbat we read from the book of Shemot. Moshe had his burning bush encounter and is now tasked with returning to Mitzrayim to lead us to freedom, to lead our people to freedom. He asked God, who should he say is sending him? And God replies, Ehyeh asher ehyeh. I am or I will be what I will be. Vayomer Elohim ehyeh shelachani alechem. Tell the children of Israel that I am or I will be sent you. Now in the Torah, there are many, many different names for God. But for me, personally, Ehyeh is qualitatively different from all the others. Ehyeh asher ehyeh does not define what or who God is. It is open-ended. It is not a concept or a fixed idea, but a continuous process of emerging, of becoming. Ehyeh's essence might flow from a timeless realm, but we live in the temporal world, and the nature of our encounter with the divine is always dependent on what Sefer Yetzirah, one of our oldest mystical texts, calls Olam, Shana, and Nefesh, place, time, and our state of consciousness at any given moment. And that is why, friends, that is why our attempts to package the divine mystery into neat philosophical and theological constructs will always fail. Every morning we praise God as Amchadesh Betuvo B'chol Yom Tamid Ma'aseh V'Reshit. Every moment creating, renewing, and opening the door to the possibility of change and renewal. The Ehyeh is that aspect of divinity which is constantly evolving, constantly open to growth and deeper insight. It is the opposite of Mitzrayim, that narrow place where life stagnates, where there is no life. We have all had our Mitzrayim times, friends. God knows I have. But together in conscious community, we can get into the Ehyeh zone. And what do I mean by the Ehyeh zone? Just as Ehyeh is renewing, creating, and evolving, so can we. That possibility is open to us. Bechol yom tamid, every day and every moment that we exist. I am blessed to have great mentors and wonderful colleagues and congregants and family and friends who are more than just that. They are fellow seekers, fellow travelers along this sacred path. As a renewal rabbi, I affirm my commitment to these inspiring circles and communities of God wrestlers, as together we build a dira betachton, a dwelling place here in our world for the divine. Just as Ehyeh is renewing, creating, and evolving, so too can we. And finally, my friends, we down under in Australia want to wish you all in America a safe and peaceful presidential transition. We would sending you all our love and all our support.
Working with our Kavanah of joy, we looked for inspiration in the text of Hallel, Psalms of praise featured in our festival services. Psalm 116 speaks of God releasing us from the cords that bind us. Our ordination is an opportunity to proclaim ourselves as servants of the divine. Whatever was holding us back from reaching our full potential has fallen away, and we are emerging as spiritual leaders and ritual artists. In Psalm 118, we call out to the Holy One to help us in our time of need. Our call is answered, and God sends us relief. Sandwiched between these Hallel verses is a teaching from recently departed Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, reminding us that strength comes from caring for the weakest in our society, a lesson that is painfully needed in our time. Erev Chazan Sharon McCord, my friend, wove these threads together into a beautiful composition for us to share with you today. Ana Adonai, ki ani avdecha, pitzachta lemosera. Ana Adonai ki ani avdecha, ani avdecha, emotecha, bitachta lemoserai. Ana Adonai. Hashem, I am your servant, like my mother before me. In my servitude you free me, I am unbound, Adonai. Ana Adonai, ki ani amtecha, pitachta lemoserai.
From the wisdom of Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the only people who will save us from ourselves is we. We the people, all of us, all together. When we move from the politics of me to the politics of all of us together, we discover those beautiful, counterintuitive truths that a nation is strong when it cares for the weak, that it becomes rich when it cares for the poor. It becomes invulnerable when it cares about the vulnerable. That is what makes a great nation. An Adonai ki ani avdecha pitachta lemoserai.
Min hametzar karatia anani v'merchavia. Min hametzar karatia anani v'merchavia. Karatia v'merchavia min hametzar. Yalala min hametzar. Karatia anani v'merchavia. Karatia v'merchavia min hametzar. Ana Adonai ki ani amatecha pitachta lemoserai.
Ana Adonai ki ani avdecha pitachta lemoserai.
Ana Adonai, Yani Amatecha, Pitachta, Lemoserai.
This school year was 2003 to 2004. My year on the bar mitzvah circuit, the bat mitzvah circuit, the b mitzvah circuit. People think that the Jewish part of a bat mitzvah happens at synagogue. And it usually does, but let's find Torah at the other part. Let's find Torah teaching on the 7th grade dance floor, at the party after services. And yes, you heard me right. My B mitzvah circuit year was 2003 to 2004. The liturgical melody that I declared most passionately, over and over, was not Micha Mocha, and it was not Aleinu. It was Hey Ya by Outkast on all the dance floors, everyone. Whether or not you know this song, I hope you do, you might be a bit perplexed. Rabbinic ordination speech about Heya by Outcast. Okay. The Torah of Heya. Hey. Yeah. Hi. Oneness of the universe, God's name. In 2003, Jewish seventh graders screamed at bar mitzvah parties over and over again, "Hey, hello, oneness of the universe." They did this all year, and many still do. Still a bar mitzvah song. Hey, yeah, the same forwards and backwards. Yud, hey, over here. Hey, Yud, over here. Because Jewish endings tend to also be Jewish beginnings. Just ask Simchat Torah when we end our sacred text, and immediately after we end Deuteronomy, we start Genesis again. Hey, yeah. Both that song and Judaism build themselves on countercultural rhythms of time, both Heya and Judaism. Heya, people literally argue about this on Reddit, truly. Some Redditors say the time signature is 4-4 with an occasional 2-4 measure. Achirim omrim, others say it's in 11-4 throughout. 11-4, that's different. The time signature for outcasts, maybe. My Torah teaching personally tends to be more in 11-4 than 4-4, I'd say. 11-4. 11 and 4 make 15. 15 is the gematria, the Jewish numerological value of Hey plus Yud and Yud plus Hey, of Hey and of Yah. Put the two 15s together and they make 30. I'm 30. I'm 30 years old. 30, the value of Lamed. Lamed, the first letter of Lex, my name, and of Lior, my Hebrew name. Lamed, 30, which connotes both teaching and learning. In my year of teaching and learning, my 30th year, my Lamed year, I'm called rabbi. Seems right, right? May we identify Torah in places that we don't expect. May it be taught by people who we don't expect. May it be taught to people who don't expect to be connecting to Torah. May we know that Judaism winks, that our tradition is joyous when we make it so. May my Torah and may my classmates' Torah shake the world like a Polaroid picture.
How do you follow Reb Lex? When we sing, we might come closer to hearing the world the way we've imagined that God hears the world. Those words from musician and teacher Joey Weisenberg remind us that our connection to song is more than enjoying a pleasing voice or melody. So many of our prayers are lifeless words on the page until we set them to music. And we know it isn't just the receiver who benefits from this carrier wave of music. It feels good to sing. When my heart aches, I pick up my guitar and I sing. The prophet Zephaniah, a contemporary of Jeremiah, describes God rejoicing and singing. Here, singing is how even the divine expresses joy. In chapter 3, verse 17, he wrote, "Your God is right there with you, a heroic saving power. Yasis alayich b'simcha. God will rejoice over you with simcha, joy, and will quiet you with ahava, love, and exult over you with loud singing." Our Jewish tradition teaches us that we are here to co-create the world in partnership with God. It seems one way we can do that is to sing. Our song links us to God's song, which pours love and healing calm into the world. What could be more important in the turbulent backdrop of these 5 years I've been in seminary? The great mystical poem, Ana B'Koach, that many of us sing on Friday nights and each evening during the Omer, Reb Zalman translated, "Source of mercy, with loving strength, untie our tangles. Ay, 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 ay." And there it is. A moment of sung prayer goes straight to the heart, awakens the soul, and vibrates what lives within us. We feel connected, calmed, healed. Through song and prayer, we can untie the many knots we carry inside ourselves, re-centering on love and gratitude while our hearts are open. We are restored, ready to give and receive again.
Oy, 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 oy. 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 Oy, 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 oy. Oy, 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 oy. Oy, 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 oy. Oy, 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 oy. And I'm the last. In just a little while, you will see our teachers lifting their hands toward our shoulders in a gesture of transmission and blessing. And then Chazan Jack will offer Birkat HaKohanim, the priestly blessing, famously offered in this posture. The priestly blessing comes to us from the book of Numbers, where it says, Ko tivachu, thus shall you bless the people. And then it gives the famous words that you will hear. Our sages wondered why Torah says, thus shall you bless. Why not just give over the words of the blessing? One position was that thus might be a stage direction. Just off the page, God is striking a pose in order to demonstrate. But if the idea is to receive blessing, why would we not hold our palms upward in order to collect the divine sweetness? Rebbe Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev says, in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, that it has to do with a phrase from Psalm 121, Adonai tzilcha, God is your shadow. The Baal Shem Tov explains that in the same way that your shadow follows all your movements, so the divine follows what we do on this earthly plane and acts in kind. When we are compassionate, divine compassion flows. When we bless, God blesses. The idea is that our actions and words have effect, exponential effect. Kindness has ripples in the world, and hate begets more hate. And you don't need Hasidic theology to sense that that is true. But Levi Yitzchak adds something more. He says, God is rooting for us, eagerly waiting for us to do good, to make peace, to begin to heal the world's wounds, so that the divine flow can be similarly activated. And this is an important teaching in a moment when we are so often so angry. It reminds us to live our lives, do our work, our politics, our activism from a place of love, from a place of joy. Every word, every act matters. And so we need to give out what we hope to receive. And by doing so, thus shall we bless.
a chain of transmission from teacher to student over generations. We now turn our hearts to Rabbi Daniel Siegel, Reb Zalman's first ordainee, who will invoke the spiritual lineage of the teachers who have come before us.
ואשא אתכם על כנפי נשרים, ואביא אתכם אליי. I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me, from Shmot 19:4. Ki mi goy gadol, asher lo Elohim krovim elav. Kadonai Eloheinu b'chol kor'inu elav. For who else is such a great nation that has God so near to it as Yah our God in all our calling? From Devarim 4:7, as Reb Zalman smiles and laughs at me. We are the people called from the slavery of Egypt, carried on the wings of Shekhinah, to be among those in this world who witness to the presence of the divine in this world. According to Pirkei Avot, Moshe received Torah at Sinai and transmitted it to Yehoshua, who in turn transmitted Torah to the elders, who transmitted Torah to the prophets, who in turn transmitted it to the men of the Great Assembly. Over time, this linear transmission, the laying on of hands, smicha, from one generation of men to another, became diffused as we wandered, spread out over the world, and as the number of our teachers who nourished disciples grew. For many, being a rabbi eventually became a degree, a measure of the intellectual mastery of material, which in turn conferred power and authority. For us, being a Kli Kodesh acknowledges belonging to a lineage. In this moment of a great shifting of paradigms, we express a willingness to serve others as a model and guide of spiritual practice and development, with a commitment to justice and the life of the earth. Today, we welcome our latest initiates, rabbis, cantors, and rabbinic pastors, into the new lineage of Jewish spiritual renewal, drawing deeply on the wisdom of all those who have preceded us, miyama v'kedma, tzafona v'negba, from west to east, from south to north, embracing their unique traditions and heritages and weaving themselves into a special relationship with the devotional mystics of Tzfat and Eastern European Hasidism, a lineage given first expression and form by our beloved Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi. Now, in our time, we lay the hands of smicha, of trust and confidence, on all genders, with loving respect for multiple possibilities of sexual orientation and gender expression. This is in keeping with our commitment to voluntary negotiation with the dynamic, ever-fluctuating balance between individual practice and communal cohesion. According to the lineage of Pirkei Imahot, Miriam received Torah at Sinai. And passed it to Machla, Noah, Chagla, Milcah, and Tirzah, the daughters of Slavchad, who passed it to Devorah, who gave it to Chana, who passed it to Michal bat Shaul, eventually received by Bruria, transmitted to Rachel Aberlin of Tzfat, Chana Rachel of Ludomeria, Regina Jonas of Berlin, and now surfacing again to walk side by side and share the light equally with the parallel lineage of men with which we began. We are humbly grateful for this moment of living in the fulfillment of our age-old dream from Kiddush HaLevana. May the light of the moon be like the light of the sun and the light of the 7 days of creation. May the lights of all people, in all their multiple, varied, and wonderful forms, grow ever stronger in the bond of open partnership and service to the One. Amen.
Beautiful friends, Were we all together in our Omni Auditorium, I would turn to all of you now and call out, "Shall we ordain?" And you would call out together in one great voice, in a ripple of affirmation, you would call out, "Yes." I invite you to call forth that yes in your heart. For it is with great delight that we now welcome our new Musmachimot, 6 new rabbis, 3 new chazanim, and 1 new rabbinic pastor, into our circle of colleagues and into the lineage of our beloved Reb Zalman, Zichrono Livracha, and ALEPH's Ordination. I invoke Reb Zalman's loving presence and his blessing upon us all. Our ordination this year again falls in the midst of that greatest drama of Torah, Yitziat Mitzrayim, the drama of our people's bondage and historic escape from exile in Egypt and Mitzrayim, the place of constriction, and coming up from there into the ark of redemption. Yesterday, we entered this drama by beginning Sefer Shemot, the book of names. Ve'eleh Shemot b'nei Yisrael. And these are the names of the children of Yisrael who went down to Mitzrayim. Ve'eleh Shemot. And these are the names. This week, Parsha Va'era begins with 2 verses, also focusing on names. And Elohim speaks to Moshe and says to him, I am Yud. I am Yud. I appeared to Avraham and to Yitzhak and to Yaakov by the name of El Shaddai, but by my name, I was not known to them. Elohim, Yud, Hey, Wow, Hey, Shem Havaya, Ehyeh, El Shaddai, Shekhinah. These are many names of God, by which the creative sourcing power of the cosmos makes God's self known to us. Each name revealing a unique quality of divine expression. Ve'eleh Shemot b'nei Yisrael. And these are our names. The significance of names in Torah is apparent from the beginning. In Sefer Bereshit, in Genesis, when God brings the animals of the world before Adam Rishon to see what the human being would call them. As you recall, when Adam Rishon names the creatures, Adam is not merely assigning an arbitrary label to each one, but rather discerning the essence, the spiritual DNA of each creature, and with its name, giving expression to its essence. Sefer Shemot challenges each of us to remember or discover our names, our true essence, to not forget who we are, lest by forgetting we fall back into exile, allowing doubt and fear to obscure our inner light, that nitzotz Elohut, that spark of godliness that is inside of us. How do we find and shine our inner radiance? Especially when times are oppressive, turbulent, when crises loom and there is so much uncertainty. No surprise. This is a core lesson of the whole book of Shemot. The hardships of the exile in Mitzrayim teach us how to dig down deeply into ourselves and find powerful inner light. How to find courage, strength, capacities, talents, and possibilities that we didn't even know existed. The creative sourcing power we call God reveals different names to each of us at different times. Moshe teaches us that the first step out of Mitzrayim, the first step out of alienation and exile, out of emotional and spiritual slavery, is to hear the name by which God is calling to us. And Sefer Shemot challenges us to remember our own names. When we remember our name, when with proper humility and discernment we each live into the fullness of our calling, when we offer all of our capacities, and that inner light that is inside of us in the service of godliness, we bring the redemption. And if sometimes we are awed by the challenge of the tasks at hand, we also remember God's promise to Moshe when Moshe stood at the burning bush facing a daunting mission. He heard this message: you are not alone. You are not alone. Ki ehyeh imach, I will be with you. You are not alone. Today, perhaps this can frame the challenge to our musmachimot. Keep the faith. Stay radically present to new possibilities. Walk courageously. Use the gifts, the capacities, abilities, talents, and the inner light that radiates inside you in service of the highest good, in the service of godliness. Always remember who you are. Remember your name. Today, to receive your smicha, we call each of you by name. We call Chaya Lerner for her smicha as rabbinic pastor.
Chaya Bat David Hana.
We invite members of the VAD and all who will be transmitting the rabbinic pastor smicha to join visibly and unmute at this time.
Hashem Yah Elohei Yisrael.
Hashem
Yah Elohei
Yisrael. U'Lashem Yichud.
U'Lashem Yichud.
U'Chabrichu U'Shchinta.
U'Chabrichu
Shchinta.
Al Da'at HaMakom.
Al Da'at HaMakom.
Al Da'at Kilatenu.
Al Da'at Kilatenu.
Hinenu Masmichim Otach.
Hinenu Masmichim Otach.
לכהן,
לכהן,
מלווה רוחנית
מלווה רוחנית
בישראל,
בישראל,
ללמוד וללמד תורה
ללמוד וללמד תורה,
לעם הוויה,
לעם הוויה,
לתומכם וליעצם,
לתומכם וליעצם,
בדרכי התורה
בדרכי התורה
והשלום,
והשלום,
לנחמם באבלם
לנחמם באבלם
ולשמחם בשמחתם,
ולשמחם בשמחתם,
ויהי ליבך כליבנו,
ויהי ליבך כליבנו,
פיך כפינו,
פינו,
ברכתך כברכתנו,
ברכתך כברכתנו,
ויהי רצון
ויהי רצון
השם יתברך ישלם שכרך,
השם יתברך ישלם שכרך
בבריות גופה
בבריות גופה
ונהורה מעליה,
ונהורה מעליה,
לכן
לכן
סמוכה את לנו,
סמוכה אנו,
מלווה רוחנית בישראל,
מלווה רוחנית בישראל,
קרי.
תתקרי.
And now in English. In the name of Yah, the God of Israel,
In the
Name of Yah, the God of Israel,
and for the sake of the unification
for the sake of the unification
of the Holy One, blessed be He,
of the Holy One, blessed be God,
and the Shekhinah,
and the Shekhinah,
with the consent of God
with the consent of God,
and the consent of our community,
and the consent of our community.
herewith we ordain you
Herewith we ordain you
to serve as a spiritual companion
to serve as a spiritual companion,
to study and teach Torah to God's people,
to study and teach God's people,
to support and counsel them
to support and counsel them
in the ways of Torah
in the ways of Torah
and peace,
and peace,
to console them in their bereavements,
to console them in their bereavements,
and to rejoice with them
and to rejoice with them
in their joyous occasions.
in their joyous occasions.
We hereby empower you
We hereby empower you
to consult
consult
with rabbis when needed,
with rabbis when needed,
and to serve as emissaries
and to serve as emissaries
in all kinds of rabbinic actions.
in all kinds of rabbinic actions.
Thus may your heart be in harmony with ours,
Thus may your heart be in harmony with ours.
your word
Your word
be in harmony with our word,
be in harmony with our word.
for blessing
Your blessing
as potent as our blessings as
potent
as our
blessings.
blessings.
Our blessings.
May it be God's will that you be blessed.
May it be God's will that you be blessed
with great success.
with great success.
And that God reward you.
That God reward you
with robust health of body.
With robust health of body.
And enlightened spirit.
And enlightened spirit.
And so we ordain you.
And so we ordain you.
And call you rabbinic pastor.
And call you rabbinic pastor.
And spiritual companion.
And spiritual companion.
In Israel.
In Israel.
Beautiful friends, we present to you Rabbinic Pastor Chaya Lerner. Breathing in our gratitude for the gift of this moment. We call for their smicha as Chazan. Sharon McCord.
Cyril Glima Bat Yisrael V'Yehudit.
Stephanie Weishar.
Sivia Bat Yaakov Chaya.
Steve Margolin.
Shlema Zalman ben Mordechai ve'Esther Shendel.
With joy in our hearts, we invite all who will be transmitting smicha for Chazanim to join us visibly and unmute at this time. Chazan Jack.
B'Shem Yah.
B'Shem Yah.
Elohei Yisroel.
Elohei Yisrael.
U'Lashem Yichud. U'Shabarichu. Al-Dat Hamakom. Al-Dat Kehilatenu. מסמיכים אתכם לכהן חזנים לתפילה
בישראל
להורות תורה לרבים ברבים להקדיש לעם הגינה
עולם הנגלה
כבוד השכינה,
לכבוד
השכינה,
והננו ממנים אתכם
ממנים אתכם
שליחים
שכם
ימינו אותנו
ימינו אותנו
מסמיכים אותנו
מסכימים אותנו
ממנים אנחנו אתכם
אנחנו אתכם
ידכם כידינו
ידכם
ידינו
פיכם כפינו קולכם כקולנו לכם כשירנו לכם כתפילתנו יחדכם כבירכותינו אם אתם לנו חזנים ובעלי תפילה כל המברך
In the name of Yah,
God of Israel,
God of Israel,
and for the sake
And for the sake
of the unification of the Holy One, blessed be He.
of the unification of the
the
Holy
Holy
One,
One, blessed be He,
And the Shekhinah,
and the
with the consent of God,
with the consent of God,
and the consent of our community,
and
the consent of our community,
here ordain you,
we
ordain you
serve as Chazan and Master of Tefillah.
to serve
as Chazan and Master of Tefillah
Among our people, Yisrael.
among
our
people Israel,
To be a source of Torah to multitudes.
to be a source of Torah to multitudes,
To elevate the realm of melody into holiness.
to elevate
the realm of melody into holiness.
For the glory of the Shekhinah.
for the glory of
We here appoint you as our agent.
We here
appoint you as our agent,
Just as we were appointed
Just as we were appointed
by those who ordained us.
Those who
by
are
those who ordained
May your hands be like our hands.
May your
hands be like our hands.
Our mouth, our mouth.
your
Mouth, our mouth.
Voices, our voice.
Your voice, our voice.
Our songs, our song.
Your songs, our songs.
Your prayers, our prayer.
Your prayers, our prayers.
Our blessings, our blessings.
your
Blessings, our blessings.
And so we ordain you.
and
So we ordain you.
And call you.
And call you.
Chazanim.
Chazanim.
And Ba'alei Tefillah. In Israel. May the one who channels blessing be blessed.
May the
one
who
channels blessing
be
blessed. May the one who channels blessing be blessed. We present to you Chazan Steve Margolin. Chazan Sharon McCord. Chazan Stephanie Weishar. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Holding this beauty in our hearts. Before calling up those present today for their rabbinic smicha, we honor and remember Rabbi Dr. Sarah Tauber, acknowledging the well-earned rabbinic ordination that we were privileged to help her receive on her deathbed the day before she passed on August 28th of this past year. May her memory and legacy be a blessing. If Rabbi Sarah were here with us today, she would be joining in the smicha and the simcha with her classmates. We call for their rabbinic smicha. Carl Wolf.
Aharon Shmarya ben Shlomo Leib Halevi Ufanina.
Charna Rosenholz.
Emunah Karanov, Bat Yoel Ben-Leva.
Hazan George Mordechai.
Guji Uriel Ben Meir Vehaviva.
Erwin Keller.
Yitzchak Eliyahu מבית מרים והלל הלוי.
Lex Rofberg.
Lior ben Pesach Kiva Verachel.
Sharona Greensteiner.
שרונה בת יחיה ושושנה.
We invite all who will be transmitting the rabbinic smicha to join us visibly and unmute at this time.
Shem Yah Elohei Israel,
בשם
Shem Yah Elohei Yisrael.
ולשם ייחוד
ולשם
ייחוד
קודשא בריחו ושכינתא
קודשא בריחו שכינתא
על דעת המקום
על דעת המקום
ועל דעת קהילתנו
ועל דעת קהילתנו.
הננו מסמיכים אתכם
הננו מסמיכים אתכם
לכהן כרבנים בישראל
לכהן רבנים בישראל,
להורות תורה לרבים
להורות תורה לרבים ברבים
ולברר דין אמת
ולברר דין אמת
לתיקון השכינה
לתיקון השכינה
כשם שמינו אותנו
כשם שמינו אותנו
המסמיכים אותנו
מסמיכים אותנו
כן ממנים אנחנו אתכם
כן ממנים אנחנו אתכם
להיות שליחים לעם ישראל
לעם ישראל
למסור להם את דבר השם הבא אלינו בזמן הזה ויהי ידכם כידינו
ידכם כידינו
עשייתכם כעשייתנו ופיכם כפינו ודיבורכם כדיבורנו ומעשה בית דינכם כמעשה בית דיננו וברכתכם כברכתנו לכן סמוכים אתם לנו ורבי תתקראו להורות תורה לרבים כדת משה מרים וישראל. In the name of Yah, the God of Israel, and for the sake of the unification,
of
the Holy One, blessed be He,
of the Holy One, blessed be He,
and the Shekhinah. With the consent of God,
with the consent of God,
and the consent of our community,
and the consent of our community,
herewith we ordain you.
Herewith we ordain you
to officiate as rabbis in Israel, to publicly teach Torah, and to clarify and pronounce truth.
and to clarify
and
announce truth
in ways that make a tikkun.
in ways that make tikkun
For the Shekhinah.
for the Shekhinah.
We hereby appoint you.
We hereby appoint you
as our delegates and emissaries.
as our delegates and emissaries.
Just as those who appointed us,
Just as those who appointed us,
delegated us and sent us
delegated us and sent us
to be rabbis.
to be rabbis.
And thus,
And thus,
you are now ordained as rabbis.
who are now ordained
as rabbis
and leaders.
and
leaders.
May your hands
May your hands
be like our hands.
be like our
hands.
Your decree
your decree
like our decrees.
like our
decrees.
Your rabbinic acts
Your rabbinic acts.
valid like ours.
valid
Valid
like
like
ours.
Your adjudication
Your adjudication.
like our adjudication.
like our
adjudication.
Your blessings
Your
blessings
like our blessings.
like
our blessings.
And so
And so
we ordain you
we
ordain you
and call you rabbi
and
all you rabbi
to teach Torah publicly
to teach Torah publicly
according to the path
according
according to the path
set out by Moshe,
set out
by Moshe,
Miriam,
Miriam,
and the people Yisrael.
and the people Israel. Mazel, 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 simen tov, mazel tov.
we present to you Rabbi Carl Wolf, Rabbi Charner Rosenholtz, Rabbi Chazan George Mordechai, Rabbi Erwin Keller, Rabbi Lex Rofberg, Rabbi Sharona Greensteiner, may all of those who channel blessing be blessed.
Amen.
Amen.
We remain present for Birkat Kohanim.
I invite everyone who feels they can awake their inner Kohen to stretch forth their hands.
Mazel tov, mazel tov. It's so official you can change your names in Zoom. Mazel tov, mazel tov. Ah, I'm not sure you heard. So change your names if you can. These rabbis and cantors and rabbinic pastor. The sound of the breaking glass teaches that brokenness and joy can exist together. We celebrate with carbonated holiness that our world is now enriched by such gifted ones like these holy ones, these Klei Kodesh. We listen with our hearts as Magid Rav, Charna, leads Shechianu and then breaks the glass.
So first with the Shechianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'himianu
Rahman hazeh.
Amen.
Woo!
Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Siman tov and mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
كنا يوم الأحد وجينا ننصاري طلعنا من راب السماء السيعة
يجمع شتات إسرائيل شرقي وغربية.
سوري قالية سوري قالية ما يرويها حشبته يا ليت فيها. سوري قالية سوري قالية ما يرويها حشبته يا ليت فيها.
كنا يوم 3 وجينا لمعارة لكلام الغدي
we did it.
العارة ونزور السلطانة حواء والسارة ربقة وليا بصرخ الكلاوية.
سوري قالية سوري قالية ما يرويها حشبته يا ليت فيها.
سوري قالية سوري قالية
ما يرويها حشبته
يعني يفي فيها. كنا يوم الأربعاء وجينا لأحمى يا للعمياء العدو يبرم ولا يحمى. قصدنا نزور الحليل ونسابح بالله شفنا شرقي الجبارة هي تبانية.
سوري قالية سوري قالية
ما حلوها ايش بدوتي علي فيها. سوري
سوري قالية
ما حلوها ايش بدوتي علي فيها. كنا يوم الجمعة وجينا للدورة يا ريت بيوت العدو تكون محجومة. يبعث مشيخين والقعد في روما يجمع شتات إسرائيل شرقي وغربية.
سوري قالية سوري قالية ما يرويها حشبته
يعني يفي فيها.
سوري قالية
سوري قالية
ما يرويها حشبته يا ليت فيها.
كنا يوم الشباق قدنا في لمتنا بساد البساطين قدنا بنجانا بالميسار الفنجان يدير والمزامير الطباط طيور والصافير فاستقبلنا جوز ولوز والجيجي مشوية.
سوري قالية سوري قالية
ما حرويها ايش بدوت يعني يفك فيها. سوري قالية سوري قالية ما حرويها ايش بدوت يعني يفك فيها. سوري قالية سوري قالية ما حرويها ايش بدوت يعني يفك فيها. سوري قالية سوري قالية ما حرويها ايش بدوت يعني يفك فيها.